I think it was sad seeing Jani Lane on that metal show about a month before he died.
I think Belly to Belly is an album that fans gave up too easily on.
I think I felt like such a massive fucking rock star the first time I saw a video of me on stage with Warren.
When Lane comes back, Steven gets fired because Janie had bankrupted everybody with that.
I mean, I love Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich, but I very rarely go back to that album.
Live Warrant is where Warrant was the best.
The fact of the matter is that they are still out there touring and living off of being a member of Warrant because Jani Lane was the song and dance man.
I think one of the coolest things that they ever did is that Warrant Trickster Firehouse pay-per-view on the Blood, Sweat, and Beers tour.
Live at Gazzari's in 1987.
There's a tale to be told there.
Yes.
And that could save lives and that could also help people.
Yeah. So they bring me up there. Hey, look at the tattoo. Blah blah blah. Like, oh fuck, I got a heart on that's fucking out to here.
I will always be mystified, Anthony, as to why Blind Faith wasn't a hit.
Really, here it comes. Holy shit!
Best channel on YouTube.
The hair metal guru from Warren to Crew. The hair metal guru. Never forget Charlie too.
Welcome to the Hair Metal Guru. My name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. And holy shit, we got Patrick and his Warrant background because yes, it is Warrant time again. And we were actually just talking before I hit record that, sometimes you go, yeah, some of these bands you hit a lot. But number one, we're passionate about some of these bands and the fans are passionate about some of these bands. So yes, some bands have gotten a little bit more publicity on the channel than others. But yes, we're going to go with Warrant again. But I have looked at the comments and we will start getting other bands that haven't been covered as much. We just did a Whitesnake 10 Things I Think video here. But anyway, today it's 10 Things I Think about Warrant. And with that, let's welcome Patrick Reeves to the show.
How are you, brother?
I'm great, man.
That's awesome
How are
because
you?
it's always awesome to be on to talk about Warrant. And I think, the one thing you can say about Warrant, Anthony, is that everybody who was a fan, whether it was one record or all of the records, that one record they bought, they were very passionate about, like you said.
Totally. And I almost made one of my 10 things, 10 things that I think. I almost made one of them that I think I am so fucking excited for your upcoming book that you
Cool.
are working on about Warrant. So I don't, if you want to
Yeah,
update
it's
people.
I get asked about it almost every day by at least two or three people on X, or on the comments of your YouTube videos. Just the other day, I saw one where somebody was asking where they can find out more about it. Just follow me on X.
Yep.
I'm sure Guru will put my X stuff up on there. But it's a book about Warrant. I'm careful about what I say about it because I'm trying desperately right now to get releases from people. But I've done quite a few interviews with some folks in the Warrant camp and around the Warrant camp about it. It's specifically about the period from 1992 when Dog Eat Dog's getting released until Janie dies.
Yep.
I don't cover, Cherry Pie or the things that everybody knows, not because I didn't like them, just because that's not part of the story I'm trying to tell. And as you know, and we've talked about on the channel before, that period of time from Dog Eat Dog's release until the end, there's information out there, but there's not as much as we'd all like.
Exactly.
And it's a crazy ride.
And one of my things is going to be kind of about what we are just talking about right now. But anyway, yeah, I've had people message me. Somebody just messaged me from Australia and was like, "Hey, man, tell me when Patrick really puts that book out." He goes, "I don't get shit for information down here, so if you could let me know." And I was like, "Hey, when that happens, it'll be all over my social media. It'll be all over the
Appreciate
channel. So that will happen." So
Awesome.
everybody's excited about that because they're just not. I think I would love to see, you see tons of books about fucking Zeppelin and Kiss and AC/DC, and I get it. But I think at some point, like I'm hoping that we get your book, we get a book on the backstory of poison, and so
Right.
it's bad
Doesn't
because
exist.
and we're kind of the last generation, I think, of book buyers. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So
Agree.
okay. Hey, in the description you will find you will find the link to Hair Metal Guru merch. You'll find the link to my X channel. I'll put both of our things for X up here, and you'll find the link to Hair Metal Mansion every Saturday from 6 to 8 Central Time. I host Hair Metal Mansion on Rock 101 KLOL. I would love it if you would check that shit out. And if you don't, I'm telling. Okay. So we got 10 things we think about Warrant. Let's get rolling with it. Patrick, what's your number 10?
I will always be mystified, Anthony, as to why Blind Faith wasn't a hit. You know, it cracked the highest it got on the Billboard Hot 100 is 88.
Right.
And that song is a beautiful song. It's so well written. When he starts singing about blind faith in you, holy shit. You know, you've told your story about I Saw Red. Well, for me, blind faith just gets you right in the feels.
Yep. Uh,
And the
Go ahead.
live performance they did on Arsenio with that is phenomenal. And I gotta say, hats off to Stephen Sweet, because what a background singer he is.
Yep.
Holy shit, that guy can sing.
Yes. Uh, I'm right there with you. I think because that single came out, it was 1991 when it came out. It
Mhm.
was starting to
Change,
the
yeah.
change was starting to happen, but I I remember an interview, or maybe shit, was it one of those home videos where anyway they're talking about the next single is going to be Blind Faith, and somebody's like, oh, what's the blah blah blah, and Jerry Dixon's like, he's like, psh, like that's going to be the one that hits it out of the park.
Yeah.
That's going to be, and I completely thought that was true. I fucking love that ballad. It's so emotional.
You figure they were already at 2 million when that got released. It makes no, I mean, we can sit here till the cows come home and say how we can't believe it, but I truly can't believe that
Yeah,
that didn't push it to 3, you know?
and he's right. If you haven't seen, go to YouTube. The Warrant doing Blind Faith on Arsenio Hall. It's all acoustic. They're all sitting on chairs. Fucking, it is amazing. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So, right with you. All right, my number 10. I think it's amazing to go watch what I know to be, somebody can tell me if I'm wrong, the two earliest Warrant live concerts you can find on YouTube. There is live at Gazzari's in 1987,
Yeah.
2 years before the debut album. And you can tell, like, there's parts of it that are really fucking rough. Some of the background vocals, you can tell they figured out a way to fix that shit.
Oh God, yeah.
They're like, but
Rough.
they're so damn young and so damn excited. And Jani Lane is just, I mean, and so I love to look back at that. But then in April of '89, there's a it's like less than 30 minutes, them playing a place called the Ranch Bowl in Omaha,
Oh, yeah.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's a small fucking club. And it's right when the first single, Down Boys, is because they're like, hey, Down Boys, you call and request it on MTV. You're like, oh my God. I just there used to be Warrant at New Haven, Connecticut. They were opening for Poison. That used to be on YouTube. I can't
Oh,
find
yeah.
it anymore. There's like a song or two from it. So there's not a ton of great video for early Warrant, but those two just bring me back, and it's just so cool to see Jani Lane so young and so excited to be on stage. It's amazing. Go check him out.
There was a short-lived show back in 88, 87 that was called Rollerball.
Yep.
And they also perform on Rollerball, and that's crazy too. But man, you hit the nail on the head, Anthony, with the Gazzari show. It's the background vocals are rough, but to me, you know what the best moment of that whole show is how excited they are And also the opening to it when Bill Gazzari says, these sexy boys are going to be the next big hit,
Yep.
I love
Yep.
that. But they also do Sad Teresa in that. And
Yes.
it sounds so different, but it's
Totally.
so cool. It's
Totally.
rad.
And there's a point where Janie says like, "Yeah, we broke like Van Halen's attendance record
Hmm.
at Gazzari's," and then he's like, "So don't mind my erection. It's probably going to be here all night or something." So
Yeah, it's
I,
awesome.
I think I've stolen that line on the channel a couple times, like, don't worry about this erection or something. I probably stole that from him. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Great video, man.
Okay, all right, we're on to your number 9.
To kind of go off of what you were just talking about, live Warrant is where Warrant was the best. And I love their studio stuff, and but seeing them live as many times as I did, I know you saw them a ton. But I think one of the coolest things that they ever did is that Warrant Trickster Firehouse pay-per-view on the Blood, Sweat, and Beers tour. And I urge every one of your viewers to take the time on a Saturday or a Sunday or a holiday or whatnot when you're bumming around on YouTube, for hours, kind of like we used to do when we go to Blockbuster Video and you'd walk around and go, huh, and you'd be there for an hour looking for what to watch. Instead of doing that, pull up the Warrant performance from the Warrant Trickster Firehouse pay-per-view. And the reason I bring it up is because it shows Warrant at their absolute peak of stardom. And it's a fantastic show. All the cylinders are firing, the happiness on their faces. They're playing to a sold out arena in Louisiana. And all of those fans were hanging on every song and every word. And they pan out to the audience a bunch, and you just see so many happy faces. And the best part of that, Anthony, is the band now can go back and look at that and relive the monumental part of their career. And I think it's just a very striking performance, and it makes me happy to see it. It's great.
For people who ever, or for people who ever who how am I fucking for people who talked about Warrant as if they weren't like a talented band, um, go watch that concert because well, number one, Jani Lane doesn't miss notes, and
Never.
that band is fucking tight as shit. I mean, you're not like, oh fuck, yeah, they're not very good, like they're not haven't rehearsed, or they can't really play their instruments. People use, oh yeah, well they had to use somebody to play the guitar solos on the first. That was just because the producer wanted, he was
Right.
like, we're competing with the Van Halens of the world. It wasn't like Eric and Joey Allen couldn't play. He
No.
wanted to do shit that was like, not no like I said, Van Halen. I I damn near made. I'm glad I didn't now. I damn near made one of mine about the pay-per-view in Louisiana. Janie Lane is funny, and then he can be serious. And you said he had the crowd in the palm of his hands.
Oh, every
Uh,
word.
I've told people, like when we talk about the best front men, I'm like, go watch that and you will see a guy who has a crowd, and like you've never seen before. He can handle a crowd better than I think anybody I ever saw
He
live.
just carried on a conversation with 30,000 people.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And like I said, even like, and he could be funny. Like you could be like, fuck, is this guy a comedian? Like he just unbelievable.
Some great moments in it too, because they talk about, there's one point in it where he stops the show and he tells everybody that Joey Allen just is having a baby
Yep.
and how he just had a baby. And,
Yep.
there's just, they bring out the keyboard player and say, look, we don't put him on the side of the stage. He's on stage with us. It's just a solid pay-per-view. And for that matter, the Trickster and Firehouse performances are pretty kick-ass as well. So
Speaking of that, I just talked to Steve Brown yesterday. So that
guy's
that
awesome.
will probably be out before this. But anyway, that's why you see a trickster fucking thing behind me. Um, yeah. So you're absolutely right. Unbelievable performance. Go watch that. My number 9. I think, and man, I don't want to bring the video down. I'm probably gonna have a couple of these that are gonna be kind of a bummer, but I think it was sad seeing Janie Lane on that metal show. about a month before he died. And I thought, he didn't look like he didn't look like rough, but he looked weak. He didn't look like he was strong. And he is, they're asking him, "So, how you doing?" And you can tell there's like concern in their voices. And at that time, I didn't, you didn't know. I didn't know that he had multiple DUIs and all this shit going on. I mean, you just didn't know that kind of thing as a fan. So they're asking him like, "How you doing?" And he's lying his ass off. Well, you just gotta you come to an acceptance about things that you can do and things you can't do. And you can tell they're looking at him going, okay, like they know. I'm sure before they did the episode, they found out what kind of state he was in and what had been going on. They were probably like, fuck, man, I hope he doesn't come on and fucking ruin it. Cause he'd had, like I said, all these DUIs and shit. And so when it got released, he was already dead. It said this was recorded, but you can just kind of tell that something's not right in how everybody's looking at him like, fuck, man. We've heard the stories about things that have been going on with you, and we're worried about you. So it was sad, and I, is that on YouTube? Can you? I haven't
So
gone.
it's not. It used to be,
Okay.
and VH1 cracked down. All the That's Metal show used to be up there. People
Yeah.
had ripped it up
Yeah.
and put it up there, and they took it all down. But you can sometimes find a little like 30-second clip of Janie talking or whatnot. But it was sad because Janie had been quite ill beforehand too,
Yeah.
and he looked frail, and
Oh yeah.
he was very washed out looking. He wasn't drunk during it
Yeah.
or anything. He was very lucid and candid and whatnot. But I remember from it specifically, like one of the first things is Eddie Trunk went, "How you doing, man? Like you
Yeah.
you doing good?" And
Exactly.
you could there was concern in that voice,
Yeah.
but it was heartbreaking
Yeah.
to know that he was already dead when it aired.
Yeah.
I remember the beginning of it because the three hosts of that show stood up in front of the camera and said, "This is for our friend Janie, who
Yeah.
passed away and whatnot." Michael Sweet, who was the other guest on that episode, came out afterwards and said he didn't really know Janie that well.
Yep.
They'd never really crossed paths, but that they met that day and he was really good to him. But I agree with you 100%. It's very sad, but
Yep.
um, yeah, there was a lot going on at that time.
Hell yes. Hell yes. All right. Let's move on to your number 8.
I think that it was very evident when you first listened to the Cherry Pie record that there was a quality leap that they made in songwriting from Dirty Rotten to Cherry Pie. And it wasn't just a step. It was they took 3 or 4 steps. And you look at just Uncle Tom's Cabin, Blind Faith, I Saw Red, Mr. Rainmaker, Bed of Roses. The songwriting standard was just, is this the same band as Dirty Rotten, Filthy Stinking Rich? And I remember, not so much when I was a teenager listening to it, but once I started to get it, 20 years old, 21 years old, where lyrics really start meaning more to you than they do when you're 14 or 15. Looking back at those and going, did Janie write those?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did they get help? And
Yeah.
no, they didn't. Obviously they had Bo Hill, who you, as you had said earlier, he had a way of producing. And I listened to a great interview with Warren DeMartini from Rat and Bobby Blotzer, a different one, but they didn't have a great relationship with Bo Hill, and Warrant, for that matter, really didn't have a good relationship with Bo Hill. But Bo Hill had a way that he made records,
Yep.
and there's no denying that those records were hits. So, he had a team of people that he worked with, and Mike Slamer was one of them. And
Yep.
he said, "This is what we're doing. We're not going to argue about it. And why, if you're Warrant, are you going to argue with it?"
And in Bo Hill interviews, he talked about how the guys were just gracious, and I
Mhm.
remember him saying like, they seemed to like each other. It wasn't like a band where you're like, okay, we all got together, we fucking hate each other, but he was like, they seemed to like each other. And he was like, and when I suggested that, the band was like, okay, did they like it? No. But they were like, if you think this is best for the record, and
We're
he
gonna
was
do
like,
it.
they ended up taking, Joey and Eric ended up taking lessons from Mike Slamer. I mean, fuck.
Yeah, and they're still friendly with him today. So
So, and I completely agree. I'll be honest. I mean, I love Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinking
mhm.
Rich, but I very rarely go back to that album. Some of the
Yeah,
songs in there, you're kind of like, okay, I liked it. Cherry Pie was so fucking
it
high,
was a leap. Yeah,
a dramatic leap. You are
yeah,
absolutely right. Totally.
yeah.
Okay. Um, so now that I'm at this part at my number 8, I tried to find things that I hadn't talked about a bunch.
Mhm.
So, like I could have said, oh, Andy Warhol. Like I was like, maybe I'll talk about Andy Warhol, but I'm like, fuck, I've talked about Andy Warhol. So if you talked about shit like that, completely fine. But I was trying to think of what are some things that
Mhm.
I haven't done. So I think that I bled for rock and roll at a Warrant concert. I don't think I've talked about this.
No, this is awesome.
Um, but in 95 or 96, I can't remember what year, but it was at the Iron Horse Saloon in it was on the outskirts in Crystal, Minnesota, right on the outskirts of Minneapolis. And that I saw a ton of Warrant shows there. But it was one of the first times, and there was a couple times where I got pulled up on stage.
Too fucking cool. I'm gonna party with you guys, cowboys. Who's with that, okay? The guy's got a fucking stronger now tattoo across his fucking arm. Look at him, put the fucking spotlight. That's a man who is committed. That's a man. You have no fucking idea, folks, what that does to you. You write a fucking song, next thing you know, you see it on somebody's fucking arm. That means the fucking world to me, brother. Thank you very much. I'll tell you what, why don't you step up on the side of the stage? We're gonna get you fucked up, okay?
And so they bring me up there. Hey, look at the tattoo, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, fuck, I got a heart on that's fucking out to here. And then when they say, all right, get back in with your buddies, we're at the front. I jump off and I fucking nail my leg. And it hurt like a bitch. And I'm like, son of a bitch. But it was packed. They did really well in North Dakota and they played around because in the upper Midwest, rock and roll was still alive in the mid 90s, even though it was club shows, but they would be like sold out clubs.
Mhm.
So I couldn't look at my fucking leg because I'm fucking getting pushed against the stage. There's so many people there, which was amazing. And then after the concert gets over, like we're fucking walking around, and I hear the security guard, the front of the stage is cleared out, blah, blah, blah. The security guard goes, what the fuck happened here? And then we look over and there's a huge puddle of blood on the floor. And I'm like, Jesus. And my buddy goes, hey man, look at your leg. And I had pants on, but my leg was drenched in blood and
Oh,
the
fuck.
white parts of my shoes were red. So now I'm going to show you this scar. Maybe you can
Oh,
see it,
yeah, you can see it. Yep.
is from that show. So we went to a party afterwards and we're drinking and I'm fucked up. And people are looking and I'm like showing everybody, oh, look what happened they're like, you need to go to the doctor, man. Like that's fucked up. Like it looked like just mangled meat hanging. So anyway, I went and got stitches, and I've always told people like, fuck, yeah, it was 96 because I remember I should get Warrant 96 tattooed on this fucking scar. So that's my story of how I bled for Warrant and rock and roll.
That's so cool. You know what? That's a scar worth having.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right. Moving on to your number 7.
I think that I will always wonder what Warrant would have sounded like when Lane left the band in 93 and they said we're going to go ahead and find us another singer. They auditioned a couple people. But they actually offered the gig to two different people. And the first person that they offered it to was Patrick Briggs of the band Are You Ready is what they were called as a glam band in LA. And he wound up becoming a star for an alternative rock band that wound up on Lollapalooza and had a pretty successful career called Psychotica.
Yep.
And but he got the gig and then he just never showed up again to anything. And he moved to New York and he started Psychotica and he worked in the club scene out there. He was
Yep.
like kind of like a club guy, you know, like with the get up and all that shit.
Yep.
But the other singer that I'll always wonder what it would have sounded like was South Gang frontman Jesse Hart. And
Yes.
Jesse Hart took that job. He was ready to do that. He worked with the band for a very short amount of time because his management forbid him from taking the role. They were working on a solo gig or a solo record deal for him, and they thought they were going to get it, and they told him to decline the Warrant job, and none of it ever worked out.
Yeah.
And as we know, 6 months later, after Lane left, he came back to try and tour and make a record to avoid having to pay the financial burden that was bankrupting everybody. But I'll get into that later. But I'll always wonder what that could have been. Now, there's a demo song that existed that came out on Eric Turner's Demos for Diehards.
Yep.
Called "Girl" is the song, and it was written by Eric Turner and Butch Walker. Because that whole group was kind of intermingled, the South Gang group with the Warrant group at a point. But it's a killer song. You can find it on YouTube. I'll always wonder what that could have been like.
Same here. And I mean, most people that follow this channel, I mean, we talk highly of South Gang.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jesse Hart has a great voice. Now, they weren't going to have Janie's songwriting, so you know,
No.
but still, that voice was phenomenal. And Jesse Hart, way before I started this channel, you know, like you're on Facebook, fuck, Jesse Hart is a friend, right? So I added him and we chatted because he was like a big military supporter, and I would, you know, this is back when I was in the guard and shit, and post him, and so but now, like, I'll just be honest, like he suddenly kind of disappeared. He started a band called like Bloody Red Hearts
The Blood Red Hearts, yeah.
or Blood Red Hearts or something, yeah, something like that. And they put out a couple videos, and all of a sudden, like he's not active online anymore. So just I hear rumors that he's had addiction issues. I can't
Yeah.
verify that, but anyway. So I hope he's doing okay because he was, you know, really nice to me back in the day before I ever did this. So I think that bringing Jamie St. James into Warrant was never the right fucking move. I like Black and Blue a lot. Black and Blue was a good band, but I saw Warrant with Jamie St. James a ton of times, and every time I was like, they need to get a new singer. No offense, Jamie St. James. If he sees this, I fucking keep trying to get him to come out, you know, come on the channel. Like he'll post something on X, and I'll be like, hey man, love to have you on to talk about Black and Blue. But they did the album Born Again. There's a couple songs that I thought were okay, but just every time I saw them, I just, you know, would on some of the ballads, like he really struggled to hit the notes, and I just kept thinking, you need. So when they got Robert Mason, that was a much better fit, but Jamie St. James never worked in Warrant.
You know, I remember when it happened because you know, I remember that they got Jamie St. James and they announced it, but Stephen Sweet still hadn't returned yet, and Mike Fasano was going to be the drummer. And you know, and then it was with Stephen, and I think once they got Stephen back in, that was going to sell some more tickets because it was, you know, 4/5 of the original lineup.
Yep.
And you know, Jamie St. James, at first on paper, I thought, oh, this could work. This could be interesting.
Yep.
But I remember hearing clips and whatnot and just being like, this is not right.
Right. Right.
And I agree with you. You know, I never saw that lineup because the reviews of it live were like, is it okay? Yeah, but it's not even fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Moving on to your number 6.
All right. The period between 93 and 95, to me, as I said earlier at the top of the show, I'm writing a book about. But what the most unique part of that whole breakup in 93 is to me is that, you know, they tried to pull the band together, they tried to audition singers, but what really is interesting is Lane comes back to try and avoid a lawsuit and try and make things work. He had gone out to try and get the solo deal. We've talked about it before that his wife at the time, Bobby Brown, and Vince Neil's wife had a really good friendship going, and Vince had just gotten a deal, and there's talk that from the other band members, the surviving band members have said in other interviews that there was talk about Vince being in his ear saying, "Hey man, I got a solo deal. You could get a solo deal," and all of these things. And Jani was having marital problems with Bobby Brown because he was never home, and they had a young daughter, so it just made sense to him. He also had songs which were the Jabberwocky songs, which he felt like were not Warrant songs, and so it's a very interesting time. But when they pull it all back together, when Lane comes back, Steven gets fired because Jani had bankrupted everybody with that. And there was a whole lot of anger there. And Steven was the only one that just couldn't seem to get over it. And the band was like, look, we're going to move on. They fired him without even meeting with him. They did it through a manager. It was ugly. They kept his equipment. There was some weird stuff going on there. Joey quit because, he had resentment about stuff, but he also had his own alcohol issues and was going through a divorce. And I think he saw the writing on the wall that we're never going to make any money.
Yeah.
But my point here is that the biggest aspect that really hurt Warrant was their manager died.
Yes.
Tom Hewlett.
That's right.
Tom Hewlett, what people don't know about Tom Hewlett was he was an industry heavyweight, a massive industry heavyweight. Like he worked with Whitney Houston. He worked with all of these people. Do you remember the Voices That Care song?
Yeah.
For the Gulf
Jani was
War?
on,
It
yeah.
was a massive hit. Jani had a prominent role in that
Prominent.
song. And, he had a solo in the video with it twice.
Yep.
He's in the video doing this with, Chevy Chase and everybody.
Yeah.
And that was Tom Hewlett that got him in. And, he got him out with Motley. He got him out on the Flesh and Blood tour. He died of cancer. They didn't have any management when they got back together. They went and booked a club tour on their own.
Yeah.
And, ultimately, you could go on a whole journey of trying to figure out all the bad decisions that get made because they didn't have really good leadership at that time, like they had with Tom Hewlett. They may have even, if Tom Hewlett was alive, who knows? Maybe they could have gotten like a really rinky-dinky major label deal, but we'll never know.
Right. And there's so much controversy with their next manager, Abby Steinman.
Oh God, yeah.
I don't know. It's not like I have the inside scoop, but you hear things and it seems like you don't get the Jabberwocky shit should be released. And maybe that's not him, but you just kind of the rumors that I hear that maybe he's controlling a lot of that stuff, and who knows?
Yeah. Marionettes. Yeah.
Right. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's something that and I've never really talked about it. I knew that, Tom Hewlett was their manager but I just haven't really brought it up. So that was a great one.
Yep.
Phenomenal. Okay. My number 6. I think I'm shocked at how little the guys in Warrant talk about Jani Lane. Like big interviews. And we've talked before. There was the one interview that Eric Turner did, and he got into some detail, even talked about some of the low spots with Jani. But the guys in Warrant seem to not do very much press. And when they do, it's not like, hey, yeah, like, yeah, here, let's talk about when I first met Jani Lane and let's talk about this. It's kind of like Jani Lane just isn't part of the conversation. It seems to me. So I don't know if that's like, hey, they just all agreed, hey, we're just gonna move past that. And you know, not many of our favorite bands have had a member like that die.
Mhm.
You know, Jani Lane was like one of the, I mean, there was Tim Kelly died, but I'm not trying to, but Tim Kelly, he was like, you know, uh, Mark Slaughter and Dana Strum were the faces in that band.
No,
You
but the
know,
driving force.
the
Yeah.
drive, Jani Lane was Warrant, and that was the first time we got to. So who knows what'll happen? Shit. Let's say Vince Neil dies. Maybe the guys in Motley Crue are going to be like, hey, we're not talking about Vince. I don't know. But you would feel like, I think that those guys owe Jani Lane their career. His songs and his charisma and his alpha alpha male personality kind of drove them to the success that they got, in my opinion. And you would just think that there would be more. Hey, and I know there was a lot of dark fucking times, and he did a lot of shitty stuff. Okay, you can't deny that. But the fact of the matter is that they are still out there touring and living off of being a member of Warrant because Jani Lane was the song and dance man.
So there's a lot of different things to unpack there for sure. You know, there was as Bobby Borg alluded to in your video, the band was Eric and Jerry's band before Janie was in it.
Yep.
And there was always it's our band. It
Yep.
might be your songs, but it's our band.
Yep.
And the hard part there is Janie wrote the songs. Janie was the face of the enterprise. And whether it's your band or not, that's a hard pill to swallow. The
Yep.
guy also bankrupted almost everybody in that band.
Yep.
He cost them a lot of money and he cost their crew a lot of money when he would cancel tours
Yep.
or leave tours.
Damn
So
straight.
I think, today when you go see Warrant, you don't hear anything about his name until it's time to play Heaven.
Yep.
And then we say, oh, this goes out to our brother, blah, 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 blah. I don't know what people would want them to do, other than it's not going to be a constant tribute to him.
Right.
But at the same time, I agree with you in the sense that there is a lacking appreciation,
Right.
I think. And I don't know how you overcome that because there's obviously there's some acrimony there, you know.
And even, not that I want the band to shit on him, but hey, why can't we know some of the darker times? And when I interviewed Bobby Borg, I even said, I was like, hey, I don't know how much you want to go into this, but I think that if if we talk about Janie and his drinking, we can come at it from the perspective of, look, here's what I saw with a very talented person as he was starting to fall, and maybe other people will be able to use that information, in a way kind of educational. Like so why not, like, hey, look, here's what was happening when he started to get out of control. It doesn't have to be like, I fucking hate that guy, but like, man, we started
Yeah,
to notice in 1998, maybe, that's when it really got bad, and tell us about it. It
right.
doesn't have to be a hey, it's time to shit on Janie Lane party, but it can just be like, look, here's some things that we experience in our lives, and we would like you to know about it. And we're gonna salute him because the guy was a monster talent, but we also want to tell you a little bit about the dark side, so maybe that will help other people.
I think I get where some of them come from. Obviously I haven't had tremendous luck talking to them.
Right.
They're very tight-lipped about their stories with Janie.
Yep.
Eric Turner does interviews, and he will just say up front, I'm not going to talk about that.
Yep.
I like to remember my good times with Janie.
Yep.
And I get that his kids are out there and his family's out there,
Yep.
and I'm sure that they don't, go online and watch interviews about Janie, but if they
Right.
did, they don't want to hear people who were close to him shitting on him all day. But at the same time, there's a tale to be told there,
Yes.
and that could save lives and that could also help people.
Yes.
And I hope someday that there's a documentary. And Warrant has talked about doing one, and they have the video for it, and they all have personal home videos. So I hope we do get that story. I think they're just trying to take the time to be the ones to tell it,
Sure.
and that might be some of it too.
Yep. And I think, there's a reason that on this channel, warrant videos do exceptionally well. It's because people are dying for information. People want to know more because there's
Mhm.
just not a lot of information out there. And that's
Right.
why your book is going to do very well
I
because
hope so.
people want to know
I
more.
hope so.
Okay. Shit. Now I fucking forgot where we at. I think we're at your number 5.
I think Warrant should give Dog Eat Dog the reissue treatment, complete with a solid remastering. They could include tracks that aren't readily available, like Medicine Man and Last Action Hero. Some live material that they have from that tour. I know for a fact that they at when Dog Eat Dog tour started, that they were recording every show at the soundboard
Hmm.
at that point, but that it scaled back a little bit as the venues were not selling.
Right.
So I know that there's live material out there. They had a lot of money behind that tour, so there's a lot of stuff that was there that they could put promotional stuff in the pack for it for
Right.
30th anniversary edition or whatnot. But the European dates also, there was video. The entire Astoria concert was shot for MTV Europe.
Yep.
That's where the audio that you can find online of that show comes from, is from the MTV recording of that. Just the whole concert just never came out, is the thing. There's clips of it in the Headbangers Ball Europe episode that you can see online.
Right.
Um, but I think Columbia, could, or now that the band owns the rights to Dog Eat Dog now again,
Yep.
put something out for it. Give it a
Yeah.
reissue treatment. It sounds great. It's a Michael Wagner recording, but
Yes.
let's get it out there and celebrate that record.
Absolutely, man. I'm completely with you on that. I do have a Warrant Dog Eat Dog vinyl. It's unopened. I don't know, I can't remember where where I got it or who put it out. If it was just Columbia, but it's fairly new, and it kind of sucks because the Dog Eat Dog, the thing is like very
Yeah, it's
small in the
small and then
middle,
it's
and then the
gray.
rest of it is just gray. It's like they couldn't figure out a way to expand the image. Like that seemed fucking weird.
Yeah, all that's in it is a sleeve too. Like there's no
Is
book,
it?
there's no nothing.
Because I haven't opened mine up. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I did.
All right. Well, I'm with you. Give us a box set. Give us that extra shit. Give us all the ins and outs and the nooks and crannies and fucking
Mhm.
make it epic. Completely. All right. My number 5. I think I felt like such a massive fucking rock star the first time I saw a video of me on stage with Warrant. Okay, check this out. In the mid 90s, like, and I've said many times, I got pulled up on stage a few times in Minneapolis. Me and my buddies would be up front and they'd be like, check out his tattoo. And I'd always wear fucking tank tops and be like, look at this, here's Stronger Now. We're all drunk as shit. So I got pulled up a couple times. So like a couple years, and this is, in the 95, 96 range. Well, around 97 or 98, we go to a party and a buddy of mine, and I don't know how the fuck he got it, but he goes, dude, I bought a bootleg of a Warrant concert from a dude. Let's watch it. I'm like, fucking A. And it's like all the guys that, or at least some of the guys that we all used to go to these concerts, So we're all drinking and shit, and we put this thing on, and we're watching, and all of a sudden, fuck, it's I get pulled up on stage, yo. We didn't know. And everybody's like, holy fuck, we got a bootleg and you got pulled up on stage. Everybody is like slapping five with me. Everybody's like treating me like I'm a fucking rock star. I got so damn drunk because we broke out like the tequila bottle and we're like, we got to do shots because of this. Anyway, it was, because this is, before the internet, before YouTube, to
The
actually
only way to
end up
get those videos, yeah.
with that. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know where they got it from, but back in the day, people used to like go to concerts and fucking, sneak in a camera or something and record it, and then they would in magazines, hey, buy bootlegs, blah blah blah. So it was just amazing. And then when that thing ended up showing up on YouTube years later, I was, so anyway, it's on YouTube, me up on stage. Maybe I'll put the clip on there. So anyway, it made me feel like a rock star. It was such a great memory. That's my number five.
That's such a fantastic story,
Yeah.
and it's something that took Warrant, if they're that incarnation of Warrant, it took them 25 seconds at a show to do,
Yes.
but gave you a lifetime of
Right.
memories.
I think
Such a little thing. Yeah.
I think these, and probably any famous people, but like musicians, they don't understand how a simple, hey man, how's it going? Acknowledging people and fucking pulling them up on. But even just like after a concert, if they would, shake your hand and say, man, like you don't forget that shit. It's really important when you love a person's music that much.
I met Janie after their performance at the Glam Slam Metal Jam in Long Island in 2001. And
Okay.
I got backstage in between Warrant and Poison sets, and Janie was standing there talking to a girl, and I just stood and waited. And he looked over at me, and I was the only one standing there, and he told her to wait a minute, and he came over and he said, "What's up, man?" And I, was so starstruck, and I just said to him, I said, "Janie, I just got to tell you, I think Bitter Pill is one of the finest songs you've ever written, and I love your new records." And I said something about Solid being a great song and Coffee House and whatnot because they were the only songs I could think of in the moment. And he looked at me and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Dude, that's why I make music, man. Thank you. That means the world to me." And
Yep.
that was our interaction and I'll never forget it. And he went back to the girl and started talking to her, but
Yeah.
15 seconds,
Yep.
never forget it as long as I live.
Absolutely. And he had that way,
Yeah.
many times you'd get a couple seconds. Uh, one time after a show in Bismarck, Eric was out selling shirts and Janie fucking came into the bar and everybody was vying for his attention. But we got to do a shot of Cuervo together, and I showed him my tattoo, and my daughter's name is Madison. And so we were talking about our both of our daughters being named Madison. It was probably 30 seconds, but yeah, he would never
Totally cool.
know how important that was to me.
Awesome.
My number four. Okay, I loaded up on the stories that I didn't think I told
You
people.
should.
So I think one of the wildest things that almost happened was uh the Jane. Well, it was Janie, but I got invited on the bus by Bobby Borg.
Right
And
on.
then the band, so he like brings, and then the band slowly matriculates. I've always wanted to use that word on the channel into the bus, and I'm sitting in the fucking back lounge by Janie, and some of the guys are playing like a video, like golf, like whatever, Sega, Nintendo, I don't know, a video game, and I'm sitting with Janie, and we're kind of watching, and he's kind of chatting with whoever else was on the bus. I don't remember, but they're getting ready to go, and I'm sure he's fucking with me. But he goes, "You want to come to Wisconsin?" And I was like, like first I'm like, are you fucking serious? And I'm like, in my head's scrambling and I'm wasted. And I'm like, because I'm like, fuck, maybe he's gonna let me sleep on the couch there and fucking go to the show. That I don't know. And again, maybe if I would have said yes, I'm going, he would have said I'm kidding. But he was like, you want to go to Wisconsin? That's where we're playing tomorrow. And I'm like, fuck, all my buddies are like still like probably in the club drinking, and I got backstage somehow. So anyway, I was like, no, but it was wild. And I considered it for a second. And like I said, he was probably joking, like you want some dumbass fan to be, wake up in the morning and there's this dumbass fan on the couch.
Right. And I'm sure people like Eric and Jerry and Bobby were like, fuck, please don't say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that was another one of the crazy memories. That is my number 4.
I think Jani
Excellent.
Lane's unreleased works are an American treasure that needs to be heard.
Say
There's
again?
never been a songwriter of the area that wrote more personal and adaptable lyrics that you could feel in your heart and soul. You know, songs like Comfortable with Sad, Saltwater, Changes, Whatever Happened to the Girl, Washington Square. All of these are on YouTube. You can hear them. They're fantastic. They all tell a story, and that's the beauty of Janie's songwriting was you could follow his stories and make them into your own. It feels criminal that these songs aren't available. He had a website for about a year before his death that was called Laney Jane Music.
Yep.
And it was his licensing site that you could go and listen to 1 minute, 30-second clips of like, there must have been 60 songs on there.
Yep.
And you could save them. So I did. So I've got the minute 30 clips for all 60 songs.
Right.
And there's not a one that's shit. It's all gold. There's a craptastic amount of material that he recorded with Carrie Kelly that was not the Saints of Los Angeles stuff.
Right.
It's all just out there somewhere that, I know Carrie Kelly's got it and he said, he doesn't know what's ever going to happen with it. But, he wrote with Billy Morris. He had these session friends in LA, a guy named Bruce that he worked with closely. So much material and it needs to be heard.
I just, and so when I talked to Bobby Borg about that, like the Jabberwocky, and he seemed to think, oh, there's not much interest in it. Like,
Bullshit.
and not that I want them to fuck the fans over, but I mean, let's say you think we're only gonna sell 1,000 copies. Like what Stevie Rochelle did with Tough, What Comes Around Goes Around. He reacquired the rights to that album, and I'm sure he wasn't like, yeah, this is gonna sell 20,000 copies. He probably printed 500, I don't know, but he
Right.
sold it for 40 bucks. Which is 15 more than you might expect to pay. Maybe it was,
But he signed it
yeah,
and
and
they
he,
put
and he
it
signed
out.
it and shit. And I think it did really well.
It did.
So you know what? I think the diehards would pay 50 bucks for that on vinyl. Again, I'm not advocating to screw over the fans, but obviously if you're going to release it, you need to make a little bit of money on it. So, find a price that you feel like justifies and find a way to get that shit out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Stevie Rochelle thing because Stevie Rochelle does it right. He only prints a very small quantity, but he makes them high quality
Yep.
and he signs them
Yep.
and he personalizes them and he does it all himself.
Yep.
And that's not to say that the people who I don't think that the people behind Jabberwocky or that would release any Jani Lane solo music are going to take the time to do it all themselves.
Yeah.
But it needs to come out. And the output of the quality of music he was writing at the end of his life was just mind-blowingly good.
Right.
If you like Warrant, you have no idea how good that
Right.
music is. It's just phenomenal.
Him and an acoustic guitar and some sad fucking lyrics,
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor and go on YouTube and find it. Just look up Jani Lane Unreleased and you'll find some of it.
Right. Okay, my number 3 or whatever the fuck we're on. My number 3. I think that it was such a bummer that Dog Eat Dog was not performing like they wanted it to, that they copied the I Saw Red acoustic video on with the song Bitter Pill. And so if you know, like I Saw Red became a massive hit, the regular song, well then they did Jani doing an acoustic version. He's walking around in a graveyard, and it like that went on YouTube or on MTV and became a video hit and just like extended the life of that song. Well, they put out like I think they said that the Bitter Pill video cost like 250 grand to make, and it wasn't doing what they wanted it to do. So then they record another version. Maybe this will hit. So it's Janie again with an acoustic guitar, copying the formula. And so I don't think I discovered it until years later on YouTube going, holy fuck, they did an
So,
acoustic version.
so that both both of those videos for Bitter Pill only ever got played on do you remember the box?
The
It
bot.
was like a music video channel, but you called a 1-900 number and you could
Okay.
order a video and then it would play.
Right.
That's the only place those ever got played.
So it was it
Bitter Pill
was
made
just
it to MTV, but
it was just strange, and it just goes to show, I mean, I think the band knew, and I'm sure everybody associated knew that we got something here. Why are they not playing it? So fuck, let's throw this up against the wall. It worked on the last album. It didn't work on Dog Eat Dog. So, which is such a pain in the ass because if there's an album that we've talked about probably more than any other album on the history of this channel is Dog Eat Dog, I would imagine. I rated it my number one hair metal album of the 90s. And so everybody was trying to navigate that period and trying to figure out what is there something else we can do? Oh, let's try this. And just nothing was going to work because the powers that be had decided we are done with this music.
you know, I almost had this in my list, was that even though it burns inside to know that that album did not, it still went gold in a
It did.
bad time, but the reason it went gold was a substantial chunk of it was pre-sold to Columbia House and BMG. So that all of those, whether you buy them from Columbia House or BMG, it counts as sales because they were purchased by those companies.
Right.
So that's a huge chunk of where the initial sales of that record came from. Um, but the beauty of its failure is look at how it's recognized now.
Oh,
It is on any YouTube channel that talks about hair metal, puts it as their favorite.
yeah.
It's in magazines as being the lost favorite album.
Yeah.
And a whole look at Mariah. Mariah's age group loves it. When
Yeah.
they go out and check it, they love it.
Yep.
It has gained a whole new life, and whether or not it will ever top the charts or anything like that, it won't, and it will never achieve a huge sales standard,
Right.
but it's universally loved, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
It is. Very well said. All right.
I have,
Your number two.
all right, my number two is I think Robert Mason's a great singer and he puts on a good performance, but in my opinion, he wouldn't have been my choice.
Okay.
I put on X one time, like, am I missing something? You know, because there's no doubt Robert Mason kicks ass. He's a great singer.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, he's not the right singer for Warrant. And I don't know who the right singer for Warrant would be, but I think they'd be better served to go find a singer that's a little more audibly closer
Right.
to Jani Lane. Robert Mason has a soulful, raspy voice. The two Mason albums, I have tried long and hard to like them or to find, there's some decent songs. I think Home's an okay song. You know,
Life's a song I really
yeah,
like.
Life's a Song's all right. I know Jerry Dixon wrote that one. That's a good song, but I just have really struggled to embrace the Robert Mason era of Warrant. And
Yeah.
I I know he's doing a great thing. I know he was one of Janie's friends. I know, they met on the Dog Eat Dog tour, but it just doesn't really do anything for me. And I feel, you know what, Anthony, I feel so guilty saying that because it sucks to say, and I think he's great. So, but he's not for Warrant.
He looks great. He
Yeah.
sounds great. But I'll be honest, I tend to agree with you. I mean, and is part of it because you're just so like we love Jani Lane. We love his vocals. We love his interaction with the crowd. No matter what Robert Mason does, everybody's going to be like, "Yeah, it's good. It's not Jani Lane." So,
I love Sebastian Bach and I love Skid Row, but I've been able to get down with Eric and I got down with Solinger. So, I could get, it's understandable the situation because Janie's dead.
right.
But man, I would love to love Robert Mason Warrant, but I just can't. And I couldn't with Jamie St. James.
But like with Sebastian Bach, he's still alive, so
Yeah,
you can see like you can go watch him on YouTube and you can
right.
be like, oh fuck, he's kind of starting to struggle. We never got to the,
Yeah, we never had that
did see
problem.
some shitty stuff with Jani Lane in 2008. We did see that, but like we still look at Jani Lane like it's the memory,
Hmm.
all the good memories. And with like Sebastian, you can be like, yeah, Skid Row needs to find another guy because Sebastian ain't gonna sing that shit. I mean,
You can't.
right? So
Yeah,
Robert Mason, I'd love to have you on the channel. You're fucking awesome, but I think just what we're talking about is probably just more like it's going to be hard for anybody, for a
anybody
real
to step
Warrant
into it.
fan, to latch on to somebody else. All right. Okay. My number two. I think the last time I saw Jani Lane in concert was super sad. This I think will be the last bummer. Um, but I went by myself to see Warrant in Monoman, Minnesota in 2008. They were playing a casino, the Shooting Star. And I was like, fuck it. Couldn't find anybody to go with me. I love Warrant. I love Jani Lane. So I drove by myself. I listened to the first three Warrant albums on the way there. I wrote an article about this for Sleaze Rocks, but he sounded great. This was like the third show, I think, of that reunion tour. It was
No, wait, yeah.
a few shows later where everything fell apart. So I got to see him when he was good. But here's my memory that I wanted to share is that Janie saying, "Hey, we aren't going to play anything new. We're going to play the songs you know and love." And the crowd is like, "Yeah, all right. We don't want to hear anything new. We want to play the old songs that we know and love." But I just remember thinking, like, if you saw him on that belly to belly and ultraphobic tours, he was always like, please listen to this new stuff. Love, love this. Like, I love it. I love writing new songs. Sure, the old stuff is great, but I don't want to be an oldies act. I don't want to be that. And then here he was basically saying, fuck it. I'm an oldies act. And I just felt sad about that. And I was like, fuck. I'd love to hear some ultraphobic. I'd love to hear some belly to belly. They didn't play anything after Dog Eat Dog. And I just left that concert feeling sad for Jani Lane.
If you saw Warrant in any time from 1994 till he died, you heard him say exactly what you just said. Just check this one out. Really, it's 4 minutes. Just check this out. We're going to play all the songs you love, but just
Yes.
check this one out because the output of that guy was so great. And it's not a cocky thing to say your shit's good,
Yep.
but to know the impact it might have with people. And I think Janie wanted to play the songs that meant the world to you,
Yeah.
and I agree. I would have been pretty sad with that. And I remember him saying on the Rockline interview when they got back together that, nope, we're going to stick to the first three albums, the Columbia releases. You know, he had said even in that Rockline thing that he had half an album written that, you know, he wanted to record with those guys, but he just never got it.
Yep. Sad. Yeah, shit. Yeah. Okay. We're on to your number one.
No surprise here. I think Belly to Belly is an album that fans gave up too easily on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's my favorite record. If I had a Belly to Belly shirt, I would be wearing that. I don't though, and good. They better, you know, 10B or 10A is damn it. Why can't we have some Belly to Belly and Ultraphobic merchandise? I know they're re-releasing Ultraphobic on vinyl, but damn it, give me a shirt.
Right.
You know, how hard would it be to print up a couple Belly to Belly shirts and sell them? You don't have to actively do it. But anyway, back to my 10A. I think Belly to Belly, I think the fans gave up easily on that record.
Yep.
It's the one record that you don't hear people talk about too much. Or if they do, they say, oh, I listened to it once. It was so grunge. And, you know, the three album run from Dog Eat Dog to Ultraphobic to Belly, you're hard pressed to find a band that plays a three album run better, in my book.
Totally.
You know?
Totally. I'm actually looking because I wanted to see a couple of the songs that I forgot. What was the song I wanted to? Room with a View. Okay.
Great song.
There is it's a slow, desperately sad acoustic song called Room with a View. And then there's a spot at the end where the guitar kicks in.
And the drums, yeah.
And it is so emotional. And you know, I just always associate that like the desperation. It's so depressing with Jani Lane's downfall. But I'll say this. In the end, even though a lot of these lyrics are dark, in the end is a great song. Feels Good is a great song.
Awesome
Letter
song.
to a Friend is fucking amazing. AYM is
Fantastic.
amazing. Indian Giver is amazing. And Room with a View. Okay, the other songs, there is some Vertigo is good, but those six, I fucking listen to those all the time.
Great song.
It wasn't like, okay, I like Warrant. I loved those songs.
Yeah.
So was it as completely a complete album for me as was Ultraphobic?
Mhm.
No. But I don't want people to think like, because like I said, if there's six songs on an album that you legitimately love, that's a great fucking album to me.
It is. And you know, the other piece to this too is that people complained about those albums, but I've heard a lot of people also agree with this. Ultraphobic and Belly to Belly songs, when they were performed live and you went and saw them, sounded completely different. And they kicked ass. The one gripe I have with Ultraphobic and Belly to Belly, I hate Rick Steyer's guitar sound. I think it sucks. It's so generic and it's just like I get that they were trying to get away from the 80s sound and try and be a little bit current. Bobby Borg talked about that in your interview. But damn, in the live setting, it didn't sound like that. And it sounded kick ass. And those songs had so much energy live.
AYM, that riff would come in, and then when the band came in, Jani Lane would jump in the fucking air, and we'd be like, we're like, here it comes. Holy shit.
Yeah, it was great.
It was fucking amazing. And Feels Good was awesome live. They played shit. I remember we went and saw them open. They opened for Alice Cooper. All these CMC bands.
It was a big show too.
And it was a great show. But this was even in Metal Edge. Everybody was ignoring their recent releases. Like Slaughter was basically playing shit from the first two albums. And they were like, fucking Warrant went in the opposite. Warrant played like 5 new songs and then played like, you know, the major hits on so they were like, fuck it, we're gonna live and die with this new album. And the fans, like me and my buddies were all, we were always like, fuck yeah. And when people would be like, we'd be like, listen to this shit, it's amazing, you just gotta stop thinking about like cherry pie era Warrant and think of it
Right.
as new. We were practically like Jani Lane. We'd be like pleading with people, just fucking just
Right.
let's
Stop
do it.
getting a piss now. Yeah.
Yes, don't go piss. Listen to this song. It's
Piss during
phenomenal.
slaughter. Yeah.
Yep.
I hear that. I saw the Belly to Belly tour 3 times, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. I saw them on the Metal Edge Rock Fest tour, which was
Yep.
L.A. Guns, them, Firehouse, and Dokken,
That
and Rat
show,
with Dizzy Pearl.
that tour opened in Fargo. I was
Yeah.
there.
Um, and unfortunately, the night before was Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth, and David Lee Roth broke the sound ordinance. And so they forced the Rockfest tour to go on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday instead of at 7 o'clock at night.
That's
So there
horrible.
was nobody there in this giant, fairgrounds. But my friends and I were there, and there was probably 35 people in a, 10,000 person place. And Jani Lane jumped off the stage and performed like 3/4 of the set from down where all the fans were
Right.
and involved everybody. And they played those songs, and those 35 people will never forget that, and I'll never forget it because he was right in front of me, and he could tell that I knew the words to those fucking songs,
Right.
and he made it feel like there was 30,000 people there, and it was awesome.
That
That's my number one.
show, that concert, that tour opened in Fargo, and there were 16,000 people
That's kick ass.
at that thing. I mean, it was, and we were all like, "Holy fuck, this is," And like I said, I'm just always the Upper Midwest. You're north,
That's their area.
fucking that's their area. Detroit, Michigan, Minnesota, and they played here constantly in the mid '90s because I think they were like, "Fuck, we'd go to New York and play for 100 people. We go to Minnesota, we can play for 500."
They didn't even do well on the West Coast where they were from, and they didn't do well ticket sales wise on the East Coast. So that's why predominantly, when people would say like, "Oh, I wish they'd come to, Georgia," well, they would if they knew they were going to have tickets there, that sold, and they didn't, so they stuck to the Midwest where their money was, and that was a smart move.
Yeah. My number one. Okay, this is going to be a couple things. Kind of
A one,
combined.
A, B, and C. Yeah.
Yeah, it's for you, Ryan. Um, I think that almost 2 years ago, uh, when I first fucking hit record and was like, all right, I'm gonna rank the Warren albums and started this channel, I'm shocked that that video has led to this. And Patrick, you've been a huge part of it, and I just want to acknowledge here that Patrick has been fucking reaching out to people and trying to, and encouraging them to come on. He's gotten me a ton of these interviews that I've had or that I've had coming up. But so I just wanted to say that. But when I first recorded that video ranking the Warrant albums, to say that now the channel has done what it has done and is at like 5,700 subscribers and all that shit is just amazing. So it's all started talking about this band. Now, where I want that to go is, here is my plea, and I'm sure some big Warrant fan, I mean, if you're a big Warrant fan, you're probably going to watch this. Maybe even somebody that is in Warrant might watch it. Please come on the channel. Okay. Joey Allen, Eric Turner, Jerry Dixon, Stephen Sweet, or fucking Jamie St. James or Robert Mason. Come on and tell your story. And you don't have to, if you don't want to talk all about Jani Lane, we don't have to. But come on. I think the channel has earned it because we have done nothing but promote Warrant since we started. So I would appreciate it. I think that the people who watch this channel would appreciate it. I think if somebody from Warrant came on, I think the video would blow up. Come on and tell the story. You don't have to go into the dark times at all, but tell your story of Warrant, how you got into music, how the band got created. Tell me about the guys that were in the band before Warrant, and get into what it was like building the name, and tell me what it was like when you blew up and it was awesome, and go into a little bit about your perspective of, when Dog Eat Dog started to fail and things like that. Again, I think maybe they don't do interviews as much, or maybe they don't do stuff like this because they don't want to talk. We don't have to talk about Jani Lane. Just tell your story. Come on the channel and do that. That's my plea to the guys in Warrant. So
I got to tell you, I think that I agree with you 100%. And I think it's a story that needs to be told. And we've talked about it from the minute you hit record on this.
Yep.
I wholeheartedly agree. And, I have reached out to them for my own reasons and my own book. And, they do interviews on other channels, so I'm not really sure why. I have heard rumblings that they are trying to work on their own documentary
Right.
and their own box set,
Yeah.
and I think that they're trying to keep everything in house right now for that. So that would be my guess, but then again, I've seen stranger things out of them. So.
Yep.
But you deserve it, and the channel deserves it, and ultimately the 5,700 people who subscribe to your channel deserve it.
Amen. All right. So that gets us to the end of 10 things we think about Warrant. We would love for you to go in the comments and comment about some of the things that we said, your thoughts on that, and then, hey, tell us some of the things that we missed, or even share some of your experiences with Warrant or Jani Lane. We'd love to see that. With that, Patrick, as always, man, it's you are fucking, when it comes to Warrant, I used to think, man, nobody knows more about Warrant than I do. I think you probably know more about Warrant than I do. It was great having you on.
Dude, such a pleasure being a part of this channel, and kudos to your success with this channel. And I think we should do a huge celebration when it hits 6,000.
I was like, I don't know, maybe when it hits 10. I was like, that might take a couple of years, but we'll see what happens.
Never know, man.
Yeah.
When you have 40,000 views of Ricky Rocket, it doesn't take long.
Yep, we need to get another one of those here. So, and again, thank you for all the things that you do behind the scenes and reaching out to people. It is unbelievable. So you're the man.
Best channel on YouTube.
Hey, so follow him on X, follow me on X. Hey, in the description, again, you'll see merch for the show. You'll see my Hair Metal Mansion link, and you'll see my X account. Follow that shit. You have the opportunity to become a member. It costs a little bit, but you get early access to some of the videos. I just put out a video on the Skid Row box set that was out for the members for a couple days before it got released to the public. You also get you get first response to comments. And hey, whatever you can do to support the channel, truly, I appreciate you being here. Until the next video comes out, my name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. Take care of yourselves.